Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Industry Partnership Monthly webinar here at CareerRise. Give everybody a moment to get in, but we're excited to present some great information about apprenticeships today. So we will just dive right in. Next slide, Allison. So this morning, of course, we're happy to have you, and we want to get you engaged. But first, just wanted to celebrate. We have this great month celebrating Black History Month. Should be year round, but at least we've got a great month. And I know our there's been lots of great stories on our social media, and I'm sure there has been on y'all's. So as you're thinking about this month and thinking about all of the inventors and athletes and politicians and people that have been so important to shape the culture of this country and beyond, that are Black and African American individuals. Celebrate them and know that we stand on the shoulders of great individuals, right? So just happy Black History Month to everyone. As we get started, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. We love to see great chat engagement. So tell us who you are, maybe if this is your first industry partnership webinar, or if you are joining us all the time. So tell us who you are, where you're from. And as we go through the webinar, we also really encourage you to use the reactions. So this is a great way to show your presenters you're vibing what they're saying, or you really appreciate it. You want to celebrate them because they can see that easily on screen. So please use the reactions as we go through today. If you're not familiar with that, it's a little heart icon, and when you click on it, you have lots of great options. So you can do the thumbs up, the heart, the laugh, whatever it may be. So we invite you to engage with us in the chat and with those reactions today. But we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Cherie Blight. Should have started with that. But I am the interim industry partnership director for our team here at CareerRise. And we've got a jam-packed day here for you. So we're going to do an introduction to CareerRise and our industry partnership team. If you're not familiar with it, we have one of our board members to give a partner welcome. And then we have two great presentations. So we've got a case study from the Department of Education, and then our partners at TCSG talking about the funding and the process side of apprenticeship. But we'll make sure and leave time for Q&A before we wrap up with some CareerRise updates. So before we talk about what CareerRise is, we do want to celebrate. Just last week, we were very excited for our board to name a new CEO and president. So Jackie Joyce is officially the CareerRise president and CEO. She has been with CareerRise for many years, so we are very excited to see her move into this role, and take it on and take CareerRise to the next steps and beyond. So just give us a little bit of applause to celebrate Jackie as our new president and CEO. So what is CareerRise? So we are a workforce intermediary, but really our goal is to expand access to individuals to really help promote that economic mobility for them, to support skilled workers. We want to make sure that they're getting not just jobs, but good jobs. And that really helps strengthen communities, right? We're all connected, as you can see on the screen, the training providers, the employers, the funders, and the individuals in the jobs, right? We're all one big ecosystem. So we want to make sure that we're connecting all of those pieces to help individuals find economic mobility. So our vision is to be the nation's leading funders collaborative to convene job seekers, employers, community resources, fostering workforce opportunities that enable individuals to succeed, strengthen businesses, and drive economic mobility for resilient communities. So I know that's a lot, but right, really what it's about is bringing all those pieces together to make it easier for individuals to find those long-term careers, right, that builds generational wealth. So this webinar series is brought to you by the Industry Partnership team. So a little bit about how we play a role in CareerRise. So The workforce development ecosystem can be a little complicated. So, really, at face value, our goal is to make it easier, right? How might we connect the dots to individuals? How might we remove some barriers? So, there's a few different ways that we do that here in the industry partnership team. Part of it is about education, which is a lot of what our webinar series feeds into. So, we want to educate about the workforce development ecosystem and also about how to navigate it. We also try to create alignment. Maybe there's two individuals, two employers, two community partners doing something similar. How might we come together to maybe expand our goal and get more done? Because we quite often we all have very similar goals, and we can do it together instead of in competition. And the other way that we can help is really by building capacity. Maybe you have a great idea to help individuals succeed or to hire individuals, and you just need the support. So, a lot of times we can come in and we can be that capacity and support through low risk programming. And what that means is since we are often grant funded for the majority of our work, maybe this means it doesn't cost you anything, but a little bit of time to kind of put the program together, right? Or sometimes it's the other way around. Small amount of money so that we can bring you the bandwidth. So lots of ways for for employers to kind of come to CareerRise and get that support. As I mentioned, our webinar series is part of that education piece about providing innovative and practical ideas, tools, and resources. And it kind of fits into these five pillars that you see. So we find that as we work with employers, these are all different topics that they all are interested in, they all might struggle with, right? Or need some support with. So it could be hiring, candidate sourcing, and workforce planning. We've got training and registered apprenticeships, which is obviously our topic today. Employment success, which is kind of removing those barriers. How might somebody make sure that once they land the job, they can keep the job? But on the flip side of that, the next part is quality careers and workplaces. How might we make sure that an employer has a good job that somebody wants to stay in? And then the last piece is career awareness and promotion, just ensuring that our youth and our young talent know about the jobs that are out there that might align with their own personal skills and goals. So we're excited to bring you this topic today. And if you want to connect more with us, we're excited to connect with you more. So, what I'd like to do now is I'd love to turn it over to Stuart Williams. Stuart is a CEO at Veterans Empowerment Organization, and we are very proud to have him as one of our board members here at CareerRise. So, Stuart, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you, Sherry. I'm delighted to be here with you today as a board member of CareerRise. So, as we get started, and as we spoke early in this session, it is African American History Month, and so I would like to ask, everybody just for a brief moment of silence to recognize the loss of the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. He was certainly a hero and stalwart in this movement. So, if we could just take a moment to reflect on his life and legacy. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to move forward with our agenda. And my goal is just to welcome you to Career Rise and our webinar. And so this topic, the topic for this month is obviously apprenticeships. And what you are going to hear from many of our speakers is around a couple of themes, right? And they're going to emerge. And I hope that you will engage us in the chat, in the group chat during this webinar. So the first topic and an issue that we will be discussing is collaboration over silos. As we know, workforce success requires employers, educators, workforce boards, nonprofits, and funders working together and not separately. CareerRise works as a backbone organization to bring together that collaboration in the sector. Next, we're going to really talk about earn and learn models are expanding. How are apprenticeships being adopted by companies? Pre-apprenticeships and work-based learning are repeatedly cited as proven scalable solutions for growing talent pipelines. Secondly, talent shortages and economic mobility are intertwined. You can't do one without the other. Livable wages, career pathways, and employer engagement are framed as both business and community imperatives. And then lastly, employers must be at the table. It is utterly important as we develop process systems, pathways, that employers are sitting at the table and that we hear directly from them. CareerRise sits at the center of engaging our employers in the conversation to create greater economic mobility for talent in Atlanta. And then lastly, the moment is urgent but optimistic. Despite funding uncertainty or systems complexity, speakers will emphasize readiness, momentum, and opportunity. So thank you for joining us today. And you're going to be in store for a great panel to share with you the work of apprenticeships in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for that warm welcome and getting our vibe in the right place, thinking about how might we move forward with this. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
So, without further ado, I'm going to kick it off to our first presentation. So, we have Laura Ergle and Heather Finley from the Department of Education, and we are excited to hear from them about their apprenticeship and their pre-apprenticeship program. So, ladies, I will pass it over to you.
Good morning. So, there we go.
I think I'm back on now.
Okay.
My internet. So if you, I didn't hear our introduction, but I'm sure you heard that we're part of the Rural Education and Innovation Team. And part of being in rural Georgia means a very unstable internet connection. So sorry about that. If I freeze again, I'll let Laura pick up for us. But thank you so much for having us here today. We're really honored. We've been on our apprenticeship pathway here at the Department of Education for a little over 2 years. And we've experienced rapid growth, lots of growing pains, and so we're really excited to share all of that with you guys today. When I first came into this position, we were interviewing paras and we were providing some grants to our districts for parapros, which, if you're not familiar with that term, that's like a teacher's aide in our classrooms across the state, and paying for their tuition to go to school to become teachers. And that was really popular. We interviewed a lot of the paras in those programs and said, what is working for you? What is not working for you? What's it like to go to school full time and work full time? And there was a lot of barriers, one of which a lot of school systems were making them uh, either resign or maybe take a leave of absence to do their student teaching. Most of them had started and stopped many times, mostly for financial reasons or other reasons, just they're first gen students and they had this lack of knowledge of how to navigate the higher education system. And so when we started to answer those questions and try to look for a little bit of additional money, once some of the ESSER monies that we were using to fund those programs ran out, apprenticeships just kept coming up and up and up. And it really answered so many problems that we were trying to solve. One of which is getting a really strong pipeline, providing support to people that need it, navigating higher ed systems, growing your own in your own communities. And all of those things, it just seemed to, every answer we came up with was developing an apprenticeship program. And so that's what we did. And we came up with our statewide Georgia registered teaching apprenticeship program. And it's open to any school district in the state. And as the rural education team, we knew how important it was for us to make a standardized system that even the smallest school districts in Georgia could participate in. So from the Gwinnett counties of Georgia down to the teeny tiny little Baker County, and I'm not even sure how many students they have, but it's probably under 1,000. And so really small districts that don't have the bandwidth to support new programs. And so as a sponsor, we develop the structure and then we assist our districts in developing their apprenticeship programs. And we have a couple of main things that are required in our program, and then we allow our districts to get a little creative with the types of teachers they want to grow, and some other caveats. But the main points is that you need some multiple entry points all the way starting in high school. And I'll let Laura talk about how important it is to start apprenticeship programs with pre-apprenticeships, so you have people to fill your pipeline into your apprenticeship program. And then we have people who are recently hired as parapros in our program. And we also have parapros. We just had one graduate in December that has been a parapro for 20 years. How exciting is that? So we have lots of different on-ramps in our program to meet the needs of all of the districts across the state, because it can be very different. We require that all of our districts provide at least tuition assistance. The majority of them are paying 100% of their tuition to in-state Georgia schools, and we're very proud of that fact, that that can go to public or private institutions, that can do their first couple of years at our technical schools, and we believe that that's really important, and that's a piece of our quality control. We provide other supportive services as well, particularly, and I'll talk in a minute about our grant that we received from the Department of Labor, but we provide monies for mentorship to the districts, laptops if they need it, books, all sorts of things that they may need to participate in their programs that might be a financial burden on them. We have that built into our budget for our districts, our rural districts. Most all of the programs that our parapros participate in are 100% online, and they all lead to earning a Georgia teaching license. So they're all approved by our PSC, so there's no question on when they finish their degree if they're going to be licensed or not. They will be licensed in the state of Georgia. We built our program on, and we'll talk about this in a minute about lessons learned, about the majority of schools in Georgia had already started working on parapro to teacher programs that were 100% online and catered to the working paraprofessional. So we were able to kind of jump on the back of that and use those structures that were already in place to serve our paras. And again, I talked about that mentorship, so incredibly important. And we have some different layers of mentorship. We have like the at-school mentorship layer, where most likely it's the teacher of the classroom that they work in is their mentor. But then we have what we call program champions, that we call sort of the connectors between us and the apprentices and their colleges and universities and their school systems. So if there are things that they can't figure out, they're not sure who to go to, we create a real strong relationship with them, with our program champions, and all of them are actually on this call. I saw Kermit and Laura performs that role some. We see them at least twice every couple of months in person, and then of course some ongoing virtual and calls as well. So we feel like that's really one of the that's the kind of the glue for our program, is our program champions, making sure all of the pieces are staying in working order. And then, of course, the biggest thing about being an apprentice is that you get paid the entire time. And so our paraprofessionals, some work part-time, some work full-time, but they earn a wage the entire time. They are never take off to do any field program requirements, anything like that. They stay employed the entire time, and they get successful wage increases as they go through the program as well. For our rural districts in our program, we have almost a $4 million grant that helps support those through 2028, and that's been a great springboard for us also. But we've also been, you talked about collaboration, Mr. Stewart. We have been so thankful to collaborate with TCSG, not only to help get our program started and learn about apprenticeships, but they also have provided many grants under Public Service Apprenticeship Program and High Demand Apprenticeship Program, which I know they're going to talk about here in a minute, that have been substantial good startup funding for many of our school districts across the state. All right, next slide. And I'll let Laura talk a little bit about what pre-apprenticeship looks like in our program.
Yes, so the benefits of being in a paraprofessional to teacher apprenticeship program, one of the first ones and a great one is to start that program in the high school. Start the pipeline right there. In Georgia, we have one of the components is instruction. So we have a teaching as a profession pathway, we have an early childhood education pathway, and we have the opportunity for students, especially in a lot of our rural districts that can't support that pathway with 28 students sitting in a classroom, they can take that coursework through dual enrollment. So the second component for our pre-apprentices in high school is to have that simulated experience. And teaching as a profession and early childhood education pathways have that practicum simulated experience built into that pathway. We also have work-based learning opportunities for students. So if the students are doing those dual enrollment courses, they could get that simulated experience through work-based learning. And if our students still have not graduated when they finish that pathway, we encourage them stay engaged and do work-based learning then and continue those simulated experiences. We have supportive services for our pre-apprentices. That includes mentoring. It could be their high school classroom instructor. It could be their practicum instructor where they're working their practicum perhaps in elementary school. We have assistance with transitioning them onto a post-secondary institution. And we also have assistance preparing them to take that GACE paraprofessional exam. And the last component for that pre-apprentice in high school is to have that facilitated entry into a registered parent-to-teacher apprenticeship program. So we have all those opportunities for our students in high school to start that pipeline to become that registered teacher apprentice. Then I'll let Heather tell you about those registered apprentices.
And I went over these four main pillars of our program when I was describing it on the slide before. But again, the four things that we provide to our paraprofessionals that are registered apprentices in our program are instruction at a Georgia technical school or an in-state education preparation program, college or university. Most all of them are 100% online. We allow our districts, which in the apprentice world would be called our employers under us. They create their memorandums of MOUs with the providers or the colleges and universities that they would like to work with, and set up like direct billing and things like that. So that takes that barrier away from of paying for things up front away from the apprentice. And working in state really helps that as well. So, of course, paid position with wage increases as a paraprofessional, that tuition assistance we just talked about, and then again, supportive services. And I can't stress how important it is in providing assistance in navigating post-secondary. Because when I say the majority of our students are first-gen college students, that is, I don't have a percentage and I need to get that so I can share it, but it's very high. And any story we hear, that's what we hear. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. Most everyone says that. And I want to stay in my hometown. And so allowing this program allows people to do that, to stay in their communities, give back to their communities, but also be able to go to school and get a degree and do something very worthwhile, like becoming an educator. All right, next slide. So when I tell you we grew, we grew. We grew really fast. We have 29 districts or employers under us. As you can see, they're all named here. We are so proud of all of them. There's some links on here that kind of go to some publications about our program. All of these districts together, are you ready for this, have generated 132 apprentices. And even though we've been working on it for 2 years, we just rolled it out about 15 months ago. So we had our first two graduates last December. They had been in school, so they had a lot of credit for prior learning we were able to give them. So, but we're going to have a lot more this spring. And so we're really excited about that. We just started our pre-apprenticeship piece this fall. And Laura, how many pre-apprentices do we have to date?
We have 34, and we're
30.
still counting. We have systems registering them or putting them in our tracking system daily.
Right. We have multiple counties, and I'm going to name three of them because I'm so proud of them. Decatur County down in Bainbridge, Candler County, which I'm going to show you some things, a video from them in a minute, in Metter, Georgia, and Vidalia City, city schools. They all hired seniors that graduated in the spring. They hired them in August that were in their teaching as a profession programs. So we already have many that were considered pre-apprentices prior that are now in our program, and they make up, I would say, about 15% of our program. All right, next slide. So while we just told you all the great and wonderful things, we'll kind of go through some of the things we had to work through too. And I'll tell you that I feel like we were really, really blessed to have in-state programs that already had some sort of online paraprofessional program. And we were able to kind of work with that. And we also were blessed to have career pathways in our high school that focused on education. So we didn't have to create any new programs across the state. We were able to retool what we already had. So I see a lot of people on here may not even be in education, but as Laura can tell you, and she's probably going to roll into this here in a second, that that there's lots of pathways in high school for almost all career paths that you can take advantage of. And Laura, did you want to hop on that one next?
Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about instruction, we just took what already existed before we looked to build something new when we were working on this apprenticeship program. So we were fortunate that we had that teaching as a profession pathway. We had the early childhood education pathway. We had post-secondary partners that also had programs too available to us for dual enrollment. So that was perfect. Not building from the start, but taking what we had and working it into our program. Building a pipeline that started early. So we realized as we're preparing students for the workforce, the governor wants us to have the top state for talent. So we've got to build that pipeline early and focus on those students in high school to be that top talent workforce. So that helps us building that pipeline beginning in the high school. And something else we found along the way is planning that support team up front and ensuring everyone has the voice, getting the right people to the table. When we first started working on this program, one of the first things we thought about was, let's make sure we have our HR people to the table because they're the ones that can tell us about who their parapros are. And as we started working more into it and building that pipeline, we realized, well, if we're going to start the pipeline in high school, we've got to have our CTA directors at the table. We've got to have those early childhood education instructors, those teaching as a profession instructors at the table. We've got to have our regional workforce boards at the table too. We need to let them know what we're creating and how we can partner and work together. So that's something we've learned along the way. And we've made changes as we do have our meetings to discuss this apprenticeship program.
So I won't get into the woes of simplifying data tracking because, if you've got a program with 5 people, that's one thing. But for us, as we continue to scale up, data tracking has become very important to us, obviously. Just yesterday, someone off the cuff said, okay, how many people in your program are getting certified in special education? And luckily, I could go look at it really quick. And I'm proud to say, as a former special educator, we have about 46% of our apprentices are actually going to be certified in special education when they leave. So that's an amazing percentage actually. But we've had to work really hard at it. And we started with Excel sheets. You would think we would be way more sophisticated than that to begin with, but we weren't. But we are now using a new system to track our competencies that we require they be evaluated on and our on-the-job learning hours, so we can quickly go in and look broadly because we have multiple employers. So, and we have 29 different employers we're working with, and all of those apprentices are spread out across them, and so it's really important to get that in place because we've been kind of trying to keep up with ourselves. I often say we're kind of building the airplane as we fly it, but it's been hard to stay ahead of that data piece for sure. The other thing is using plain language and naming. In education, we don't know how to use plain language and we love to use acronyms and think that everybody knows what we're talking about. But one thing we found is our acronym was GaRTAP to begin with, Georgia Registered Teaching Apprenticeship Program. It sounded a lot like GTAP, which was another program we had for people working on graduate degrees that were career changers. So that was a little confusing. And then nobody really understood it was a para-to-teacher program. I'd be talking to someone about it, and then they would go, "So what are you doing for paras?" And I was like, okay, well, something's not clicking here. So we really needed to rebrand everything, and we also rebranded it within the Teach in the Peach format. So now we're real clear to say this is a para-to-teacher pathway with people up front, and we just were, I guess, as people, as we thought, we assumed that people understood that, and they did not. And so we are really doing a lot of backtracking and really big PR pushes right now to make sure everyone knows that it's a true para-to-teacher program that starts in high school. Um, and then you've heard me say this over and over again. I think I've said it like 4 times, that post-secondary support is really important. Many people give up simply filling out a FAFSA, which is the financial aid thing you have to fill out for many programs, and that's complicated. So there's just little things that are we've seen that just prevent people. One of the stories that we talk about frequently, that when we interviewed a para, she said, I was looking at her transcripts, and I said, "Why did you quit for a year here and then came back? What happened?" And she said, "Well, after financial aid, I owed $200." And she said, "I have 2 kids. I'm a single mom. I didn't have $200 to pay tuition that semester." That should never happen. Someone wants to be an educator, $200 shouldn't have kept them a year away from finishing school. And so we want to ensure that there's enough supports out there that they know who to turn to in those instances. All right, next. And we have Crystal on the left. She's from Montgomery County. She's amazing. She's actually going to graduate, I think, this spring. Girardi, he's going to be on a podcast for us soon. He's wonderful. He's in Crisp County. He's one of their star apprentices there. But I want you to hear from Kelly, who is a para at Candler County in Metter Elementary, and listen to her story.
Hey y'all, my name is Kelly White and I'm a parapro at Metter Elementary School. I'm currently attending Georgia Southern and doing the apprenticeship program that is being offered by Candler County Board of Education, and I'm doing a mini master right now that will finish up Friday, and I will start a new one Friday. I will say that this whole journey so far has been really good. It was kind of intimidating at first, especially since I have been graduated from high school for nearly 9 years, and so going back to school without doing anything in between was kind of scary. But I will say that Dr. Leckie and Dr. Cooper and my advisors at Georgia Southern have certainly made this process a lot easier. And I don't know if this is any encouragement for anyone else who is interested in doing something like this, but I have a 97 so far, which is great, especially because I have been out of school for so long and I was kind of worried about that. And my professor is awesome. I've just got to finish up a few more things and I'll be done with that class. That's 3 credits that are knocked out like that. I'm just super thankful and blessed to be given this opportunity, and I can't wait to become a teacher one day.
I don't think I need to say anything about that. That just right there is why we've been doing what we've been doing. This originally was starting so we could fill vacancies, but it's become more of helping people fulfill their dreams, creating more economic prosperity in our rural districts across the state, and she's going to be one of those success stories. But right now we're going to have at least 132 of them, and I hope we'll have probably double that over the next course of the couple of years. All right. I think that's it for us. What's our next slide? Yep, there's our contact information, and we love bragging about our program. So if you want to talk with us about high school, and Laura is not just, she knows lots of career pathways. So if you have businesses that are outside of the education realm and you're thinking about pre-apprenticeship, she's a wonderful resource to talk to as well. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Laura.
No, we're just happy to be here and happy to support you in any way we can.
Heather, Laura, thank you so much. I love a moment when we can, have the feels, right? Because I know you talked about data, and the data is important to make sure that things are successful and keep going. But we want to make sure we're sharing the stories too of the impact that's happening, right? So we are going to do some Q&A after the next presentation. So Laura and Heather are not going away. So if you have any questions for them, go ahead and drop them in the chat or save them in your mind. We will have time for that. But now I'm going to kick it over to our friends at TCSG and the Office of Workforce Development. We've got the whole team is with us today, basically. So I want to welcome Rosalind Dennis, who is the Apprenticeship Grants Manager, Danny Minchell, who is the Apprenticeship Program Manager, and Jeffrey Johnson, our Apprenticeship Pathways Coordinator. So take it away, TCSG.
Hey, thank you. And Heather and Laura, it's great to see you guys. I remember when we started working on that and I was swimming in deep water. I'm just glad we were able to crack that door open for you guys because you really exemplify how easy it is to develop things through a state framework that supports the whole state. And it's phenomenal to see what you guys are doing. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide. So next slide. So we just want to start a little bit. I'll give you a brief overview of apprenticeships. I won't take up too much of your time, but you can read through this. But an apprenticeship program is focused on that employer first. It's industry driven. Everything in an apprenticeship program, from the training to the on-the-job learning, is focused on that apprentice success through support with that employer. And I really looked at apprenticeships when we first started as a career development tool or as a workforce pathway, but it is a life opportunity for these young men and women. It's not just a workforce tool. It is a career path and a career advancement. When you look at apprenticeships around the world, it really is a pathway and it's an early engagement opportunity. And the Department of Education talks so much about that. Early engagement, extremely important. I think that's some of the things we're looking at as we look to expand registered apprenticeships across the state. To some of the things that we want to do. If you look at 2015 to 2025, in 2015, we had just over 5,000 apprentices, and we've grown about 98% over those last 10 years. We have around 10,600 apprentices in the state, and we obviously want to continue to grow that. Next slide. So these are just the components of a registered apprenticeship. You heard a little bit about that in the last presentation. The first thing, it is a paid job. It's employment from day one. They are a W-2 employee with you guys. So you're taking that opportunity to bring them in, to teach them the skills they need to be successful, not because they know how to do it today, but because they're a great investment in your organization. So I would say when you hire somebody on as an apprentice, make sure they're a good fit for your organization first, because you're always going to teach those skills, but make sure they're a good fit for your organization. There's two types of learning in a registered apprenticeship program: that classroom training, which is a minimum of 144 classroom hours, not semester hours, but contact hours per year, and then 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning per year. The next thing is that they talked about a little bit was that wage increase. That goes on a form where it has an entry-level wage increases throughout the program, and then an ending wage. It's called an ETA Form 671. I think the most important thing about a registered apprenticeship program, other than the fact that you learn on the job and you learn in a classroom, is mentorship, because mentorship really provides a connected tool between what happens on the job, in the classroom, and then that direct connection with that apprentice and how they receive that information out on the job, because it's important to understand what that delivery process looks like. That mentor allows you to understand if the training they're receiving in the classroom is directly applicable and stuff like that, allows you to adjust your program. So that mentor truly is that coach throughout that program, more so than just with the person training them on the job. The last thing is that industry credential. You're going to get that either through the college, but you're also going to get that as a U.S. Department of Labor certificate when they complete the program. Next slide. So we always ask the why about apprenticeships, and you can look through this, but some of the things: does your job need advanced skills? Do you have people retiring soon? We hear that quite often, and I think we talked a little bit about that when the Department of Education is like, hey, a lot of people are retiring. We don't have the workforce to fill it. How do we fill the workforce? In all these areas, an apprenticeship is a great way to address that. And the last one I always want to bring up is a competitive advantage for recruiting the workforce, because you're removing barriers. It allows you to bring somebody in because they have the capability to learn, not because they have the skills today. Next slide. So this is just a little about defining apprenticeships. When we talk to employers, we look at this and we say an apprenticeship is a way to promote, education and both in the classroom and in industry, to reduce those skills gap and focus on job readiness. When we talk to an employer, we do talk about the skills they need to be job ready day one. And I think an apprenticeship really focuses on that because it targets the training on the job and in the classroom to really give that apprentice the best opportunity to be successful. You want to ensure that the training is aligned with the business objectives. We talk about that all the time. If an employer isn't looking to scale and grow, or does it, if they can't support the apprentices, then we don't want to say, hey, you should bring on more people if you don't have the capability to support them. And understanding what the funding requirements are, you are going to pay them in a program. You also want to ensure that the apprentices and the employers are committed to the training. So we've seen the most success when that journey worker and that mentor understand what that training looks like and are fully invested in it. And same with the employer. And the apprentice has to understand that commitment to actually going out there and doing it every day and committing to going to the classroom training as well, because it is more than just learning on the job. It is that classroom training. One of the things you look at is fostering that positive OJT learning environment, and that comes back to selecting the right journey worker. So that person that's training them out on the job has to be willing and capable of really going out there and connecting with that person and understanding that you're giving them the opportunity for advancement, and they're going to learn from you just like you're going to learn from them. So that journey worker is going to learn something probably every day, if not every week, that young apprentice is going to teach them, because the way things have changed over the years. You're also going to ensure that the apprentices can meet the classroom training requirements, so making sure that you're able to have schedules for whether it's a virtual learning or evening learning, something that complements what they're doing out on the job. And like I said, identify that right training and that right mentor to really see that program success. Next slide. These are just some of the benefits of the business, that highly skilled employer, the strong employee retention. Retention can be anywhere from 89 to 93%, depending on the occupation. But typically, you see a 3 to 5 year return on that investment after they're done with that program. About 93% of those people stay. The higher productivity, because all the training is focused on that job success opportunity, and then also that more diverse workforce. And obviously, the benefits of the workforce: increased skills, higher wages, that credential, and that career advancement and opportunity to upward mobility. I really will say that when you have an apprenticeship program, it is extremely important to explain the pathway, not just in the apprenticeship program, but what it looks like after, because they're going to go through that process. But they really want to know what it looks like down the pathway as well, because now they're going to be continued learning people. They're going to want to continue to advance and want to continue to learn, because this was part of their process to start. The next slide. And I'll turn it over to Jeffrey.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Johnson, the Apprenticeship Pathway Coordinator, focusing on pre-apprenticeship. So I know you've heard it a ton of times. Hopefully, you've heard it a ton of times about pre-apprenticeships, and this is the definition for pre-apprenticeships. But when you walk away from this, I want you to remember that pre-apprenticeships are programs geared to ready that participant for a registered apprenticeship program. So it's short term, less than a year, for those standalone programs, a few semesters for those programs that are merged within the school systems. But these are short-term programs that are just readying that participant, prepares that participant for the registered apprenticeship programs. Next slide. When you're thinking of pre-apprenticeships, what could it be? And I think Laura mentioned it earlier. When they were building their pre-apprenticeships, they used some of the elements that they already had. So this could be something that you are already doing, that we could create a pre-apprenticeship with, or it could be something new that you're building ground up. Like I said, they're all short-term programs. It could be a boot camp that you're doing. We were recently building and merging with FDIC. They had banking boot camps that they were already doing that we were trying to merge and create pre-apprenticeships with. It could be a summer program, something that you're waiting for, either if you're working with youth during the summer program when they have a summer break. If they already have camps going on, that could be a pre-apprenticeship program. And again, I keep saying youth, but they're either standalone programs or they're short-term programs that work with in-school youth as well. But if you're working with employers, and those employers have maybe 3 open positions, but they have 5 great people that they want to hire, this could be something that those extra people that don't have the position yet, you could use this program to gear those participants and ready them for their opening position. So it could be something that they're sitting in a queue just waiting for those open positions to happen, but the employer says, "Hey, those are great people. We don't want to let them go. We can use their pre-apprenticeship to build that bridge for those participants. Again, CTAE and work-based learning pathways can be pre-apprenticeships as well. Of course, we'd have to sit down with the school system, sit down with the employer, kind of gather all of our agreements together and build that program from there. And if you're working with, the work experience and the WIOA, of course, but that work experience that individual is doing could be considered a pre-apprenticeship as well if you're working with us. And next slide. This is just a quick slide that just shows the different stages of building that pre-apprenticeship, whether you're working with the school system, and using the CTAE and work-based learning classes. Of course, it all starts with the employer. We would get the employer's vision, the employer's goals, and work from there. If we're working with the school system, we'll, sit down and see how we can enhance their curriculum because they have a curriculum already. And we don't want to go in there and reinvent the wheel, but we definitely want that employer to be able to enhance what they're doing and give more experience to who's ever participating in the program. And that's one way of doing the school system. Another pathway is those standalone programs. Of course, we'll meet with the employer, probably meet with a TCSG apprenticeship coordinator for that local technical college, and have our agreements from there. But this is just showing the basic pathway. It's I try to make it as seamless as possible, but it's built there. These pre-apprenticeships are there to build that bridge for the employer to the school system, to build that bridge for the employers to the people of the community. But those programs are just readying and preparing that individual for a registered apprenticeship program. Next slide. And I'll hand it over to Rosalind.
Good morning. Rosalind Dennis again, Apprenticeship Grants and Operations Manager here at TCSG. And so I want to talk about a few current opportunities that are available to registered apprenticeship sponsors and also Georgia employers in general that can support the expansion or the creation of an apprenticeship program. And all of these really help offset the cost of starting an apprenticeship or onboarding and training those apprentices, in hopes that it makes it a little easier to get into apprenticeships and invest in that long-term talent. The first two here are the high demand and public service apprenticeship programs. Those are our two state-funded apprenticeships. And the last one, investing in top talent, is our federal apprenticeship opportunity. That's our newest opportunity available to employers. Okay, first is the high demand and public service apprenticeship program. So I mentioned, again, these are state funds helping to offset that initial cost. So these are to incentivize employers and registered apprenticeship sponsors for the creation of those apprenticeship programs across the state. And these are highly competitive funds. We get about $1.2 million each fiscal year to develop these awards. And so once those employers or sponsors are eligible, they go through our due diligence process, our scoring, and once awarded, they're able to support up to 10 apprentices. And so they'll receive $5,000 for each apprentice that is tied to the award. Once they begin the program, they'll receive that initial payment, and after they've been in the program for 1 year, so that helps with the retainment of an apprentice, and so they'll receive that final payment after 1 year. Here is the eligibility for an employer or registered sponsor for high demand apprenticeship programs. So they must be located in the state of Georgia, in operation for at least a year, and have an active apprenticeship program that employs apprentices from our high demand career list. So we're talking about those high demand industries such as advanced manufacturing, healthcare, transportation, and a good list of others as well to support apprenticeships. And they also must be current on state tax obligations. For our public sector, so this includes those local county governments, city, and also our school districts as well. So they're able to participate in apprenticeship programs, as you know, Georgia Department of Education. So just being eligible for this program, that employer must employ apprentices that are in a registered program, so that doesn't have to be tied to high demand. There are over 20,000 registered apprenticeship occupations available from the apprenticeship.gov website. So they can use those occupations, turn that into a registered apprenticeship to suit the needs that they need for those hiring positions. For both of these high demand and public apprenticeship programs, this is down to the apprentice eligibility. So those employers must hire apprentices that are at least 16 years of age or older. They must be a resident of the state of Georgia, eligible to receive a public benefit, and they must be a first year apprentice. So this is a brand new person that's getting skilled within their organization. And as I mentioned before, with high demand apprenticeship program, they must be full-time and off the high demand career list. Public service, they can do any occupation as long as it's from the apprenticeship.gov website. So we've been running this program. This is our 4th year. And so we've seen a lot of success with high demand and public service apprenticeships. Right now, we have over 120 employers and sponsors that we're supporting. For them, they are supporting over 400 registered apprentices collectively. And so for public service, we began that last fiscal year. So we will definitely see that number grow. We just closed out our applications for this last fiscal year. And so this number will continue to grow. One thing to note is the significant increase in wages. So that speaks to the retainment of apprentices. And so with these, with that component of having that increased wage when you're in an apprenticeship, those apprentices collectively, from our data, are seeing an average wage and increase when they complete the apprenticeship program. Here's how to apply to the program. We open up the application window usually twice a year. The first one being at the beginning of the fiscal year. So in July, sometime we will open up for the new fiscal year coming up. And so just one thing to note, we may have a bit of a change on how these programs are named, but getting to this website will definitely direct you to our new program names that will be provided to us based on new legislation that we've received. But for now, we still call it the high demand and public apprenticeship programs. So on these websites, you can check for updates. You'll also be able to see our latest annual report that was provided from 2025, where we're featuring a lot of our partnerships of apprenticeships that have happened throughout the state. Those employers that have been awarded from the high demand and public service, and just to giving a special shout out to Georgia Department of Education, who's on the call. They're also featured in the report as well. All right, lastly is the Investing in Top Talent apprenticeship program. So this comes from our federal apprenticeship grant that we've received. So if you're not familiar, Georgia received a $6.1 million federal apprenticeship award last year. And so part of those funds are going directly to support Georgia employers in starting an apprenticeship program. So they'll receive directed funding of $2,000 for apprentices, and they're able to use these funds, again, to offset that initial cost of hiring on an apprentice, so they can use it to develop more apprentices, assist with the training cost and any supplies that those apprentices will need. So when we look at the priority consideration, those that are linked to, of course, new apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeship programs, and those that have strong wage outcomes, or they're employing apprentices that were recently unemployed. So the basic eligibility for this program, they must be based in Georgia or have a work site here within the state, and enrolling apprentices, first year apprentices from a high demand occupation. Here's our contact information. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much. And our website is there as well. So that is where you can find information about pretty much everything we discussed here today, our partnerships with TCSG, the colleges, and their contact information as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey, Rosalind, Danny, our apprenticeship team at Office of Workforce Development. And so we will open up for questions. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We're just really thankful to have both of you. I think it's interesting that all of y'all had a lot of the same kind of takeaways when we think of apprenticeship, right? There was a lot of conversation around making sure there's mentorship and supportive services. And, you know, because helping these individuals as whole people, right? That's what leads to those success stories that Heather and Laura shared with us, and seeing those videos and those numbers of individuals that are continuing to grow into careers and getting those higher wages afterwards. And Danny also mentioned something that I think is so great for employers to consider about the why for apprenticeship, is how important it is to bring in that new talent that's got new ideas, because you've got the teachers that might also learn some new way to do something with that fresh perspective. So it's really great to have that funnel bringing in that early talent, and in within your company early. So thank you we've got some great questions. So Simisola Johnson says that so they work with reentry. Is there a way to collaborate to give supervisees an opportunity? So I think that maybe the TCSG team, somebody can take that one.
Yep. No, we were actually talking to the Department of Corrections the other day, and Department of Community Supervision as well. So it's something that we're currently working with, and our adult education is also focusing on that right now, looking at ways to be able to connect maybe some of the people in the transition centers as well, to really focus on getting them some training while they're on their transition period, to really have that career pathway, whether we look at it as a pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship. But yes, we are actively exploring those opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny. The next question we have is from Linda. Linda wants to connect further and how to get this information out to the community. Linda, I'll say from CareerRise perspective, we will share the presentation in our digest. So if you're not signed up for our digest, we'll share that link later, and we'll post this recording on YouTube to share out. But does anyone want to talk through maybe how somebody might connect further and learn more?
Sure. I mean, on our team, obviously, you can connect with myself, Rosalind, or Jeffrey, and we can reach out to you individually on the program development side, but we can also connect you with our program and outreach coordinator, Tyrese Eccles. She does a phenomenal job of planning the events that we do around the state, and also can key you into some of those opportunities to hear more about apprenticeships at our apprenticeship accelerators at our local colleges and things like that. So we can definitely provide that information as well, or Jeffrey or Rosalind can drop it in the chat.
Thank you, Danny. Laura, it looks like you turned your camera on. Did you want to add something?
I was just going to say you're welcome to, look at the contact information for Heather and myself, and we're happy to assist you with that parent-to-teacher apprenticeship program.
Thank you both. And I think this really shows why these webinars or meetings and connecting with each other is so important, right? Learning from each other, connecting further, so we can all make it easier for everyone. Thanks, Allison. She's throwing up your contact information again. And it is in the chat, so you can save your chat as well. So thank you so much, all of our great presenters, to share your knowledge, share your challenges and how you overcame them, share those tips to help everyone, maybe start a registered apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, or scale one up larger. So very thankful to have all of you on our webinar today. Oh, thanks, Allison. So a little bit, our next kind of updates for CareerRise, no surprises, are about apprenticeships. So as you are thinking about how might you get started, how might you learn more about what type of apprenticeship might be best for you and your team, CareerRise is also a resource for you. So our team, Corinne Cadet, her contact information is in the chat. If you're an employer and you're really interested in how might you get started, connect with Corinne. We can think, she can help you think through it, build it, launch it, all of the things, working with TCSG's team to maybe make it registered. So we're here to support you. On that same note, maybe we also talked a lot about youth today. If you're interested in connecting with youth for work-based learning and for apprenticeship, then we also can support you for that. We work with the United Way of Greater Atlanta for an effort called Career Ready ATL, which is really just helping youth in school have opportunities to go directly into apprenticeships and get their career started early and get them on a path. So if you're interested in working with youth for apprenticeship, please reach out to Brooke Stahl on our team, and her information is also in the chat. So we'd love to work with you on that. And more apprenticeships. So CareerRise was also very lucky to be awarded the WANTO grant from the Department of Labor Women's Bureau. And WANTO is women in women in apprenticeship and non-traditional occupations. I know it's a mouthful, but basically, how might we get more women in careers that maybe they traditionally haven't been in, and using apprenticeship as that pathway for them. So if you're an employer that you want to hire more women, support them through learning about your careers and your job opportunities, we would love to help you with that as well. So you can reach out to me, and my information is in the chat. And getting more involved with CareerRise, just staying in the loop, there's a couple of different ways. Obviously, first step is joining our webinar, which you've done today, but also signing up for our digest. So we send out a monthly digest that has a recap of today, but also lots of great information about what's going on. So make sure and sign up for our digest. And of course, follow us on LinkedIn and on other social media sites. We do have, this is a monthly series, so our next topics we've got next month is about fair pay and the gender wage gap. Then we've got about some kind of like breaking down misconceptions for manufacturing and skilled trades roles. And then we're going to talk about how to recruit women, really kind of those creative approaches, and some more apprenticeship data, because that data is important, like we talked about earlier. So make sure, obviously, you've joined us today, but share out the link to join future webinars for our team. And there's been lots dropped in the chat. So go ahead and save your chat. If you click on the 3-dot menu in the chat bar, it should give you an option to save your chat, to download that file, to capture all those great links. And as you leave us today, please take our survey. Let us know how it was, what might we do to improve, and so we can continue to bring great topics to you and make it valuable to you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and keep in touch, and we really hope to see you next month. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you from all of us at CareerRise.